I'd like to introduce our speakers for tonight, Dr. Alvarez and Dr. Sherry Ludwig. We'll be talking about cross-cultural professional development, lessons from the Philippines. Thank you, guys.
And first of all, I would like to thank you for coming, and secondly, give you a thumbnail sketch about how this happened. I'm a consummate traveler, so I started talking to Dr. Annie 2 years before. I said, I want to come to the Philippines. So she arranged this whirlwind tour that you'll hear about tonight. So there were 3 of us actually involved in this tour, doing the presentations. There was Dr. Anicia, myself, and then a friend of ours from Texas who is a Title VII fellow and a bilingual ESL specialist. So we were talking to teachers about a mandated program that the Philippine Department of Education required teachers to learn about. It's called Understanding by Design. Those of you who have been graduate students in education here know that it's a key component of our program. So with that, I'd like to turn over the stage to Dr. Ani.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. This is my first public presentation.
In Alamosa.
At least here in Alamosa, and more especially here in Adams State College. Oh my goodness, and I'm, as we say in my language, kilig to the bones, in other words. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm really very happy to share with you my city. When Dr. Cheryl said that, hey, I want to go to the Philippines, and I really want to go to your city, Zamboanga, I said, hey guys, you cannot go. You know why? There's a travel ban for all Americans going to my city. Actually, you can't go. It was a risk for me to take her. Look at her, blue-eyed, you know, blonde and very white. So actually, people like that can be seen immediately. You know, especially you guys. So it was a risk, but I know that I could bring her around and bring her to see the real situation of Philippine education down south. So what we will present to you mostly is actually what we did and what specifically I would like to share with you my passion for education and my passion actually for the teachers, for training teachers. And I have been doing this for the last 45 years of my career. I started teaching when I was just 19 years old, and now I'm 70, so, you know, joking.
So Dr. Ani, I have to tell you, I started teaching when I was 17.
But yes, I started teaching at 19 years old, and our education system is 6-4-4. Unlike here, it is 6-4-4, 6 elementary, 4 high school, and 4 college. So you get to finish like about 18 years old to 19 years old to get a degree. As compared to other countries where you have the 5-3-4, 5-3-4, right? You have 1st to 5th grade, and then you have the middle school, and then you have the, okay. So we entitled this as Cross-Cultural Professional Development, Lessons from the Philippines, because I would like to ask, and I would like really to show Ma'am Sherry the need for professional development in the Philippines, and I want to see from her perspective what she found out about our travels. Okay, this is the Philippines, and the Philippines is somewhere in Southeast Asia, and it's actually an archipelago. And this is like, the whole of this is like 7,100 islands. And they say, if it is low tide, is like about 7,100 islands. But if it's high tide, many of the islands disappear. So, so it's less than that. And the entire island, the soil is of volcanic origin. And actually we are in the earthquake belt and in the Pacific Ring of Fire. We have had two major earthquakes that really devastated areas in the Philippines. And there are three major islands. You have this part here is what we call the Luzon Island, and then this middle part is called the Visayas Island, and this is Mindanao. This is Zamboanga, and this is where I come from. So Zamboanga, and there are a lot of islands down here, a lot of islands, is already near Borneo. This is Borneo, this is Kalimantan, this is Brunei, and Malaysia is over here. So down south here is actually a lot of islands, and a lot of, the people are actually Muslims. And so the influence of the Muslim religion and the Muslim culture actually has traveled this part and up to this part of Zamboanga. The 2010 estimate of population of the Philippines is 94 million, but actually now I think it's 110 million. And our size is we're just about the size of the state of Arizona. So you can see the problems from here already. The problem actually is overpopulation. That's a lot of millions and millions of Filipinos. And because we are just like about 11 degrees north of the equator, we only have like about two distinct seasons. One the dry, and it could be dry or it could be very, very wet. Now, this is the southernmost part of Mindanao. And this is Region 9. This is Region 9. The Philippines is divided into 12 regions. And Zamboanga City, Zamboanga Sibugay, Norte, and Sur actually compose what we call Region 9. And this is where we did our professional development workshops. Cheryl traveled, she wouldn't believe that she would travel by land. From here, Zamboanga, we moved up here. And then this is the Zamboanga Sibugay province, city. And then we moved over to Zamboanga del Norte and up to this part here. That's the Pitan city. Then we traveled down again to what we call the Zamboanga del Sur area and Pagadian city. So we had a workshop here, we had a workshop here, we had a workshop there, and we had a workshop here. And this happened last July. And this is what we saw when we traveled. The Philippines is mostly water. And so along the coast, when we travel, this is what we see. And that is what we see. But we also see mountains and rice lands. And this is the kind of road that we have to travel. Not the big, big highways that you have here, but this is the only road that passes available through here. There, these are all mountains. These all coastal areas. So we travel somewhere at the center here, and sometimes get into the coastline. This is an example of a poblacion in the rural areas. There's no high-rise buildings. If there are, probably it's only like about two stories. And these are the people of my place. So that we have about 117 indigenous groups in the Philippines. This is what is found in my area. So these two here, we call them the this one is the Tiboli, this one is the Manobo, these are the Yakans, and this is the Maranao. And these are the local people, Christians, because all of these people are Muslims. All of them are Muslims. No.
it's a little finicky. You might have given out. Unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Just tell me when you want the slide stage.
Oh, there you go.
It's not the bit, so it's
Oh.
kind of finicky.
I did it.
Oh, you did it? Okay. One of the Muslim group in the Philippines, in my part of the city, is what is we call them Tausugs. Tausugs. Tau means men, and sug means current. So this group, this ethnic group, the Tausugs, are actually called the men of the current. They live in the water. They were traders. They are pearl divers. They are sailors, and they are very fierce. They are warrior-like. They were the ones who fought against the Spaniards when the Spaniards tried to come to this part of Mindanao. This is how they dress. They will always have this tudong, which is actually something that they have to wear, especially when they go out of their homes. This is their bintas, and they are very famous for their colorful sails. That's theirs, and they are famous living in houses in stilts. So there's a lot of these people in my city, and so therefore the diversity that you see inside the classroom will also be similar. Okay, this is a family going for Friday prayers, and this is a mosque right in the city of Zamboanga. But this is the evidence that Christianity has really set forth in Zamboanga. For now, Zamboanga is only 16% Muslims, but if you go down into the islands, it's 90% to 100% Muslims. But in the city of Zamboanga, the Spanish influence remains. And this is a fort that was built in 1635 to ward off the Moros, who were coming in to actually fight against the Spaniards. These are our students. This is a typical Muslim classroom, a typical rural classroom. And kids going to school. I placed this picture here because the books that these kids are holding here is actually given by the United States government. The books were donated through the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines. This is how they travel going to school. Okay, so these are what we call, this is common. These are called pedicabs, and if you recognize it, this is just a motorcycle, and then you put a cart. It's like a cart, different designs, and that's the most common form of transportation, along with the jeepney. And you know, we are very proud of this jeepney because this actually was, the design of this jeepney actually came from the jeep that General MacArthur brought to the Philippines when he came to say, "I shall return." So that was the jeepney. Many of the kids will also travel by this. We call this a bangka. And this is another group of people, another group in the Philippines, which we call the Bajaos. These kids, they live in these boats. They sleep here, they eat here, they cook here. That's where they don't have houses. So we call them the sea gypsies. And this is a problem in terms of education. And only recently, the university established a school for the Bajaos. And the school is actually in a boat, but only bigger like this. But that's where they improvised the education of these kids. These kids live in the water, and they actually dive, and they are very, very good divers and very good swimmers. Okay, there's another way of showing to you how they travel, but I like to call your attention to this one. When the rains come, it's flooded all over, especially the low-lying areas. And here you can see this is a man-made bridge made out of bamboo. And kids usually, there are a lot of those in the rural areas in my city. These are the classrooms. This is an example of a donated classroom. And this is particularly is a two classroom building donated by the Zamboanga Chinese Chamber of Commerce. So the school buildings are mostly like this. One bungalow, like a bungalow type. And this is what is inside the buildings. You see there again, there are books there that have been given to schools by the United States. When we started our travel for this seminar workshops, this is the banner that they prepared for us. The seminar was sponsored by the Department of Education, and you can see here that this is the combined effort between the Philippine government and the United States government. Specifically, we actually mentioned Adams State College. This is what we did. Our topic was best practices in teaching science, math, social studies, and English language. And we couldn't believe the participants who came. Over 1,000 teachers in Dipolog and Dapitan. Over 980 teachers in Pagadian. Over 700 teachers in Zamboanga City. And we extended our professional development to pre-service teachers. There were student teachers we wanted to meet, and we wanted to show how the UBD model is working. The sessions are for 2 days. We start at 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and there's a lunch hour of like about 1 hour and 30 minutes. Then we begin at 2 and end at 4:30. Here are some pictures of the teachers. These are the participants in Dipolog City.
Can you see the depth of the population in this one section?
Yeah. There. That's the Pitan.
Oh, do you want me to keep
Yeah,
going?
yeah, keep going. This is the Pitan. This is Pagadian.
Could you talk to them about Energizers?
Okay. In the Philippines, we always start a workshop, and even in sessions like this, we always start with an Energizer. And that's why my students in Ed 200, they couldn't believe when I asked them, hey, you dance, come on. And the reason for that is because I said, I want oxygen to get into your brains. And when there's oxygen in your brain, you're alert, you're awake, and you understand what I'm saying. So Energizers is a form of actually getting the participants to be awake, to be alert, and to be at the moment, because we don't want their brains straying away. So Energizers, and these Energizers, we call on the participants. We call on the teachers and say, okay, come on, share your Energizer. What do you do in your classroom? So they come in front and they do these Energizers. And we do this every 15 minutes to keep them awake. All right. It's hot here, my dear teachers, hot. There's no air conditioning units here. So it's hot, it is humid, but see how many of them came for the workshops. This is Zamboanga City. This is in my city. Next. A part of the crowd. There's about like 700 here. Many of them went home. They said, Ma'am Annie, we went back to the school. Why? Because there were so many teachers that we felt that we will just let the rural. These are the teachers from the rural areas who stayed. The ones from the city, they just went back to their schools.
These came from Sibugay, right?
They came from Zamboanga Sibugay, yes. And Zamboanga Sibugay is like about a day's trip by bus coming to Zamboanga. Now, but then we need to continue with the workshop. We felt and we thought we were just having 150 participants. And I told Ma'am Cheryl, I said, well, 150 we can manage. If we divide them into like 3 groups, you get 50, I get 50, and Dr. Elias get 50. And we can do the workshop well. What will you do with 1,100?
You do the workshop.
But because they were there, we really had to do something. I mean, I told Cheryl, well, we just have to go, make a go of it. So this is how the workshops, come on. Just get the chairs, bring the chairs together, and there's no table where to write, so use your laps. Some of them use the floor. That's where they did the task that
So
we
what
gave.
they're doing is designing a unit of study using the UBD model. So those of you who are familiar with that know that there's a lot of thinking going on. And this is how they actually created the product that you'll see in a moment.
Perhaps you will also be clarified. Why UBD? Why the understanding by design model? You know what? We have a new Secretary of Education. And this new Secretary of Education is a graduate from a U.S. university. And so he comes back, he gets to become the dean of the president of a very prestigious university, LaSalle University, and then from LaSalle he was made Secretary of Education. So he has a lot of ideas, a lot of things that he wants to change, So he invited Wiggins and McTighe of the UBD experts. He invited them. Wiggins and McTighe gave a video conferencing on what understanding by design is and how it can be used as a planning model in the curriculum. I believe in UBD design. I really do. And I like to see that it be implemented by teachers all over. But how to do that in a country like the Philippines? You get the curriculum directors come to Manila. Then they are given the orientation, and they will stay in Manila for like about a month to develop the modules. Then they go back to these 7,100 islands, and they mobilize all the districts and the teachers in the districts and say, all right, here is the module. We implement this unit. Just like that. And so these teachers, many of them have not heard about the UBD model. So what Cheryl and what we did was we gave them enough information, but there's a lot of workshops that went to it. They had to do one planning model. And so this is the workshops that they are doing. Here is another workshop. Okay? And sometimes, somewhere along the day, we ask them to come forward and then present their papers, present their outputs. And this is an example of a plenary session. And this teacher is actually presenting what they have done. Okay?
So we chunked it. We talked about objectives, and I think standards are still somewhat new to the Philippines, if they're at all. So they had objectives. So we'd have them design the unit, what is it going to be about, and then we would ask them to design an assessment. So you might see them here talking about, well, this is what we want to do, and here's how we're going to assess them. And then we had them design stage 3, which is the learning plan. So in the plenary sessions, they're going through these stages and talking about what they are going to do.
Here is another teacher.
This is a student teacher, actually, from Pagadian, who's talking about their unit, and she was fabulous. The 3 young Muslim women who worked together on this unit did a great job.
This is some of their outputs. This is a lesson on English, and it says here it's a lesson on present tense. And then they do the whole bit of planning from getting the big idea to the instructional objectives and to the learning plan and to the assessment. So that's how they presented their outputs.
So I'm going to insert here something that is really important to me because it was a huge aha for me. There are 170 languages, according to the internet. 170 languages spoken in the Philippines. But there is a Philippine language, Tagalog, correct? And then there is the language of instruction and the language of the textbooks. It it's English. So I want those of you who are teachers in the audience to appreciate what I'm saying. Okay? So these teachers who probably spoke a different language at home growing up, and maybe still do, Anicia?
Yeah.
Are doing all of their teaching and planning in English, which is a third language for them. And so a lot of the English teachers at the secondary level designed units on how do you teach English. Like this one is on how do you teach the present tense.
Present tense. That's an output of the circulatory system. Science, and our science. Okay, and this is a UBD planning for the ecosystem. So they have, you see, they follow the UBD format, the UBD model. And that's the reason why we're so happy that given the time and the size of the participants, we still were able to get them to understand the UBD planning model. So you see, you get there, the big idea, then they even made some drawings, and then you have the deep understanding, and then they have this, the assessment, and then the assessment, then the facts, and then this is followed by how they are going to teach the unit. These are some of the younger student teachers. These teachers are just about to apply to become teachers. At the time when we had the workshop, they were actually applying to become teachers in the region. So to me, I told Ms. Cheryl, I said, I am happy that at least the new student teachers, they became the leaders. They became the leaders because they know. They coming from the teacher training institutions where they came from, at least they know something about the UBD. So they led some of the groups.
So are they 19 and up?
Yes, about 18, 19. Now, then when we reached Zamboanga City, all the workshops were practically more or less the same. The way how we conducted, I mean, it's the same because there's 700 to 800 people. So we conducted it in the same way as we did in Cagayan, Dapitan, Dipolog, and Zamboanga City. But then we wanted to reach out to the student teachers. So three state colleges are in this group. And there's about 170 student teachers. And they are all majoring in different disciplines. Some of them Filipino, some of them mathematics, some science, some English, some social studies. So this is again another Energizer. Okay. Happily presenting their work. Collaborating with other, when you see different uniforms, that means different colleges. Explaining the UBD design. Taking pictures in front of the galleries. They did, this group did very, very well. Oh, the posing, okay. Posing with Dr. I forgot what that lady was. Okay, now, what were some of the challenges told to us by these teachers? Now, if you remember the archipelago that I was talking about, the districts are really far from each other. Many of the teachers are teaching up in the mountains. Many of the teachers have to cross rivers in order to go to the schools where they are. Many of them have to ride those little bunkers to go to the islands, those islands down there. And many of them actually have to contend with different languages. But when they come to the class, they don't pay attention to the language. And that is another area which I was telling Ms. Sherry, is that I don't know why the Philippines, with 117 indigenous languages, doesn't believe in ESL. Or perhaps they do, but nothing much is really being done. So when a teacher comes into the classroom like this, and all of you are my students, no one pays attention whether you are speaking Yakan, whether you are speaking in Visayan, whether you are speaking in Chabacano, or whether you are speaking in Waray. What matters is that you have to learn English.
And you have to pass your test in English, right?
You have to pass your test in English. And the books given by America are all in English. Yes. We don't have money to translate the books. So, in as much as English is in the curriculum, the children in the schools, they need to learn 3 languages. 3 languages. They have to learn the local language. So let's say, for example, in Zamboanga City, it's Chabacano. That's the local language. If you go to another city, it's probably Visayan. That's probably the other local language. But then you have the local language when your mother language is probably another indigenous language. So you have your indigenous language spoken at home. When you come to school, you have to learn the local language, especially in preschool and 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. And then by 3rd grade, you learn English and you learn Filipino. Filipino is the national language. We in the South, we really don't like Filipino. It's hard for us. It's hard for us. We have to struggle hard to really learn Filipino. There's a joke before when they say in Manila, people in Manila, then they will meet us, meet me, for example, because I travel often. They say, where is she from? Oh, she's from Mindanao. Hey, better get away from her. Why? Because Mindanao is known for its Muslim people, and the Tausug especially, and they are afraid of the Tausug. They are warriors, they are very brave, so they don't like us. In the same manner, we also don't like them. So what happens is language gets on the way. It's hard for us to learn Filipino. I can speak in Filipino, but I cannot teach academic Filipino. So you see, but Manila people, that's their language. They really speak, understand, and in universities and colleges, Filipino is the medium of instruction. English is taught as a language. So Ma'am Sherry keeps wondering, so why are they speaking in English? Why do you have to teach in English? Well, I don't know. I don't know. That's how we grew up. So there's a lot of problems that the teachers told us. One, many of them are isolated. I mean, the nearest school or the nearest district is far. They have to contend with time and distance to travel, just to go to the district office to probably get supplies, and meager supplies. At many times, teachers buy their own chalk, they buy their own Manila paper, they buy their own colors, So, time and distance. And then, the major thing, they feel they don't have enough competence really to teach our sciences especially. They say the books are very difficult to read. Very difficult. So they lack that. And the inadequate knowledge, and what more? Inadequate knowledge of content, inadequate knowledge of pedagogy. So in the end, many of them just teach, the usual. You open your books, and then follow me, and then we do the worksheet, something like that. So when we came in and say, the best practice is actually experiential learning. Use the resources in your locality, Why will you give an example of McDonald's when there is no McDonald's in your local village? That's what I keep telling them. Why will you give an example that says Asia Mall? There's no Asia Mall in your area. Why don't you say the little store of Lola Basyang? Or we call the store where they sell the little store. We call it sari-sari store. It's not the big the big Safeway that you see here. So why don't you use that, I said. And that's where many of our teachers lack. They cannot make the connection. They see the book and they try to follow the book. Naturally, they can't understand what is, because the English in many of these books are very deep. And then, of course, you see there are 50 to 60 students in a class. So those are some of the problems. And we classified the constraints. There are personal constraints, there are classroom constraints, system constraints, and student constraints. These are the problems that faces the teachers in my part of the city, in my part of the Philippines. One of the things that they will always complain is that there are too many holidays. And of course, naturally, when there's a typhoon, it's a holiday. You won't believe it, but July 4th, our Independence Day is a holiday in the Philippines. And then, of course, the floods, low-lying areas. The rains come, and the rains come heavy. I didn't see much rain here in Alamosa, in my last 3 years. Oh, you should come to the Philippines. The rains come, I tell you. And they come.
When Dr. Alvarez came to interview for the job, her first question was, do you have fruit here? Do you grow fruits?
All right, and then my major concern actually is English. Because I said that for as long as we cannot understand how to teach, if we do not have the training how to teach English to second language learners, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. So here, for example, the UBD implementation was mandated by the Secretary of Education. We felt that there is really inadequate preparation for the teachers to implement this model. Very much. So what do the teachers say? They are uncertain, they are overwhelmed, and they say that this is very difficult to do. They say, Dr. Alvarez, you think, yes, that your practices are good, we believe in that, but you know what? Once they get into their classroom, without support, and that is what I keep telling them, support one another in the building. If you have like 2 teachers, the 2 of you just come together and work out something. Yeah, but it's difficult. So our recommendations actually, and this is, I have been recommending this for quite a while now. I always believe that school-based, the workshops should be school-based. In other words, go to the schools, and that is what we did. Instead of letting them come down to Zamboanga, we went to the districts, except that we didn't expect the number. But if we do school-based workshops, and then let train leaders who will lead in training other teachers' groups, maybe that will work out. Of course, it will take a long time. But this model is not new. We always want to believe that the training of leaders to train others is doable. Except that the bureaucracy of the Philippine Department of Education makes it impossible for us to do professional development workshops to small groups of teachers. This is the model that we probably would like to propose to the department secretary, to the Secretary of Education. We are looking at a training model. We want it to be school-based. We want it to be rich in network and collaboration, and with a constant dialogue with the regional and district school administrators. In the Philippine budget system, any funding sources that comes in goes through the district, through the regional directors. And so therefore, if we have this, this, and this all the time in small scale, maybe we can possibly help teachers become more effective in their teaching. Oh, okay. These are my teachers. I have a school in Zamboanga City. After I graduated from Purdue University here, I went back, did work in science education because I'm in science. So I did work in science education. And when the EDSA revolution came, I was one of those in the blacklist because I was very critical against President Marcos. So I was leading the professionals in Zamboanga City against President Marcos. So I was in the critical list, and so I had to leave. I had to leave Zamboanga. So I left Zamboanga, then I went to Brunei. In Brunei, I worked for 15 years in Brunei, setting up the curriculum, setting up the educational system from British to American. British to American system, but balanced with the Malaysian values because they are Malaysian, they are Malays. So we balanced it. The curriculum became like bilingual. You have to learn English, but at the same time you have to learn Bahasa Malayu. So I stayed 15 years there. After 15 years, I decided that probably I should migrate to the States or migrate to Australia. At the last moment, when we were about to go already, I said, no, let's go back to Zamboanga. I went back to Zamboanga and established a school. My school now is 15 years old, and it's a multiple intelligence school. You will like that, because a lot of differentiation goes in there, because I have about 7 ethnic groups in the whole school of 700. So what we do is do the multiple intelligence curriculum, multiple intelligence style of teaching and learning, and these are my teachers. And so lessons learned, I feel that anywhere you go, the thirst for knowledge, especially for us teachers, especially for our teachers, and I tell this to my students also, the thirst for knowledge must be there. You should never stop learning. You should always search for ways on how to reach out to all kids in the classroom. So I feel that is an old, I have been hearing that ever since, and I think it is still true for now. So Cheryl will share what lessons did you learn from there, Cheryl?
This is it for you?
Yes, that's it for me.
All right, well, let me first say that it was a privilege to be in the Philippines. It was a new section of the world, new cultures for me. But I'm not a stranger to that, because I have lived and taught and done workshops in Guatemala and in Mexico as well. But the same values obtained in the Philippines. And I just want you to read the quote by John Dewey and note the date. 96 years ago, we were talking about equity in education. It's not there. It's not there in the Philippines. I mean, think about the language barriers. Think about who goes to the public schools and who has the opportunity to go to private schools where they can learn better English and consequently do better on the tests. Okay? I know that's true in Guatemala. That's part of the reason why when I came here, I've devoted so much of my energy to working with the Guatemalan immigrant children in the public schools here in Alamosa, because it's not equitable for those kids who come with different language and different cultural values and have a difficult time understanding things that children raised in the U.S. just understand because it's part of their, what Purdue would call their habitus, the way things are for them. So that's the first lesson I want to share with you, okay?
Well, fortunately, when I came back and established the school, I made the school as an English-speaking school. My school in Zamboanga City is the only school that speaks English when the kids are inside the campus. When they go outside of the campus, they can speak their language. But once they enter the gate, it's English. Now why? Why did I emphasize on that one? Because that was the language of the exams. That was the language of commerce when you go to Manila. That is the language if you want to go to the university. So my kids, they compete well. Cheryl spoke to them. They speak good English. They read well. And I am very happy with the multiple intelligence curriculum in terms of letting the kids learn a second language.
It's excellent, but it's not the experience of the public schools.
Well, yes.
So that's the equitable point, okay? And a lot of it has to do, a lot of this lack of equity has to do with the fact that probably the greatest and most insidious American export is culture. And education falls into that culture because there are districts, school districts, departments of education all over the world trying to replicate the American system. So, you think about everything that's happening in the American system here. Standards, assessments, those are all being exported.
Yeah.
What about online teaching? I shudder to think what's going to happen in countries like the Philippines when they try to adopt online teaching. They don't have the infrastructure, so there are going to be whole sections of the country that will be disenfranchised. But I did just a really quick little Wikipedia search, okay, to find out which countries are teaching in English, okay, that normally wouldn't be teaching in English, okay. So of course the big three, you can guess, are the United States, the UK, and Canada. Okay? After that, it's the Philippines. And then after that, it's Thailand. And
Coming up is Korea.
yeah, Nigeria and India. Okay, why are they teaching? In India there are 450 languages. Teaching, mine is too, but it's for teaching in equitable ways. Okay, so that's the first lesson. It's all over the world. It's not just Central America. Okay, it's all over the world. Okay, this is a quote from Skudnab Kangas, who does a lot of work with socio-historical and sociocultural theory. And I liked it because it shows how language is so important to a child's learning. And that's something that's so important to us here in this valley, as well as in school districts all over the country, of the US, and all over the world. Okay, language is power. It's definitely power. Okay? And it takes a long time to learn the language of power. And some children will never have that ability to internalize the language of power in their countries. And consequently, their trajectory, their capacity to do what they want to do is going to be compromised. I was amazed. This all comes from the fact that the conversation with teachers, now the lessons that we learned came as we went around those 1,000 teachers and tried to work in their workshopping groups, and they told us, we have 50 or 60 kids, we can't do this, it's not possible. And then they also said, if the kids don't understand, we just speak in Visayan or Chapacano or whatever, because they can understand that language. So the teachers are actually giving a modified bilingual approach, but they don't know that it's good. They know there's a language problem, but if you ask in the group, is there an issue? Do you speak different languages in your classrooms? They say, nope, we speak English. Okay? So language is very important, and we struggle with it here. How many of you are concerned about the linguistic and cultural acquisition of students here in the San Luis Valley? Raise your hand, please. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So it was just a surprise to me that, this country that speaks English hasn't yet recognized what needs to be done, what could help the teachers who are frustrated because their children aren't succeeding, and the students. And then, because I've worked with Maya cultures, I've lived in Guatemala, I've learned to weave on a backstrap loom, I have a very close affinity and affiliation with indigenous cultures. And their languages are really critical to their cultural maintenance. So that's my third lesson is, what about those 170 different languages that represent 170 different tribal and indigenous groups? What's happening to them?
Yeah.
In an English-only instructional setting. Okay? Last week, I had the privilege of, I was asked by this group, okay, from Sierra Grande School, to come and do a parents' night lesson on reading. And it was one of the more powerful things I've done this semester, because I saw parents sitting with their children, showing them how to weave on these little backstrap looms that we made out of twigs. And I heard one father, who happens to be on the school board, reading with his probably 7 or 8 or 9-year-old son, 10-year-old son. And he was saying, yeah, he said, my mother used to weave blankets, and my grandmother wove blankets. They never probably shared that story with their son before. And it was just, such a pleasure to see this transmission of culture and language and family values. That doesn't happen when it's an English-only monocultural situation. So those are my ahas, and it all came from the fact that the teacher said, yeah, we have to speak the science. That is something I would like to export, is how to help the teachers deal with these issues of culture and language. So this summer, I'm going to have the opportunity to be in Siem Reap, Cambodia. I'll be working with different tribal groups. I will be going back there in a year to actually teach there, because Cambodia is a country that killed off their intelligentsia, and they still do not have a teacher training program. Those are the things that are dear to my heart. If Dr. Ami had not given me this opportunity, I never would have realized the extent of my passion.
Well, the other thing also that made our workshop successful was that I speak 4 languages, and all the I can talk to them in their own language. I do English first, and I go Chamacano, and then I go Bisaya, and then I go into Tausug, which is the Muslim language. So, because all of them are represented in the, and Cheryl was really, she
Switches constantly.
I said, no, well, if I didn't know that language, I don't think we'll be successful at all, because many of those teachers will not be able to understand well academic language.
And you're teaching the content.
Yeah.
In English.
In English, yeah. So it is difficult. Well, fortunately that, that Mindanao area, I do development work there. I go to the islands. I get grants from USAID. I get grants from Canadian International Development Agency. I get grants from Belgium. I get grants from Japan. And then I go to those islands there. I go to the parents, I go to the schools, I teach them, mainly I train the teachers so that they will be able to do better in the classroom.
So we share a common passion. That's why, from the time, I had the pleasure of being on the selection committee that hired Dr. Honey. And then I made it my business to meet her, because I know how difficult it is. I'm a transplant to the valley myself, and it's hard. So I've learned to love her passion for her people, and I just want to end comments that I make with the fact that the Filipino people are the happiest people I have ever met. They sing and they dance all the time.
All that time.
Those of you who have Dr. Ami in class, that's the way she is, and that's the way they are.
My students will concur that. This morning I was telling them, Dr. Alvarez, is our test going to be on Wednesday? I think no, the final exam is on Monday. But then I was smiling. Then she said, are you serious? I said, don't you know that I'm joking? I'm always joking. They say the Filipino spirit is a spirit that transcends every suffering, every pain, We are very poor. But, like Sherry would say, We sing and dance at every.
And when I get my Fulbright, my study is going to be those Energizers. And I'm going to bring it back to all of you teachers here in the U.S. You're going to do songs, Energizers, and teach content and community.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How did you get so many, how did you advertise that, those workshops?
The regional, I sent a letter to the regional director. So Region 9, there's a regional director for the Department of Education, who is a friend of mine. So I sent him a letter and said, I am bringing faculty from Adams State College, and we would like to do some workshops on best practices in education, because we are in a teacher training education program. So, okay. So when I went, she says, Dr. Alvarez, where do you want to go? I said, it's up to you, you know, but I really want specific points, Zamboanga Sur, Norte, like that. So I said, we will go. No, but what about the payment? We cannot pay you. Oh, I said, no, we are not. I said, no, we're giving this for free. Because they are always used to getting consultants from the US and they pay. They pay, but we don't have money. Down south, there's no money. There's no money there. So the regional director says, Dr. Alvarez is coming. She's holding a workshop with Adams State College professors. So if you like to come, you come. The registration fee is like about $10. But that $10 will go only for handouts, you know, and payment for the venue, because we don't have any venue. We have to rent. We have to rent the venue. We have to rent the chairs. It's hard, my dear colleagues, it's hard. You are in a very, I always tell Sherry, oh my God, what you have here, oh my goodness, oh. I said, I don't think we'll ever have these things, you know, never, never, never. And I tell my teachers that, I said, you should see what they are having in the school, smartboard, you know, they have books, everything. We don't have them. We welcome questions.
Well, I have a question. How many of you would love to be able to do your student teaching in places like the Philippines, or Guatemala, or...
And there you go.
Is that something you'd like to see us work toward, having those kinds of international internship experiences?
Yes, yes. And I have a school in China, and I have a school in Malaysia. So you can go. School in Zamboanga, I can't take you there, because Americans are not.
Okay, that's my question.
Americans are
What would
bad.
happen if we went there? I don't understand.
Well, you know the Tausug. I was telling you about the Tausug, and there's still what we call the Mindanao struggle. The Mindanao struggle is still there up to now. The Muslim Tausugs say that the entire Mindanao island, you can get that map again if you can. The entire Mindanao island is theirs. So they are fighting for that. The Philippine government conceded and gave them Region 12. Ours is Region 9. Region 12 was given to them already. Region 12 is actually the autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. Autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. They have their own government, they have their own budget, they have their own Department of Education, the works. Given to them already. But they are not satisfied with that. They want the entire this part. This part here, they want all this part. Oops. Oops.
What were they given?
Pardon me?
Show me what they were given. Where's regional?
Oh, okay. You give me the map of the
You want the big
Philippines.
one now?
Yeah, the big one.
All right.
Okay, here. This part here has been given to them. You see this Buluan, Mindanao's here, this part here, the center? That's where they are. That was given to them. Plus this one. This island here, this is Basilan. And this one here, all these islands are Muslims. So that was given to them. So these people here, they do not follow our rules. They do not follow what we are doing. They are separate. Because they belong to the armed, autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. That was given to them by the government, but they don't like it. They like the entire
And just to give you a perspective about why she said you can't go there, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So sorry, you can't go to Zamboanga, she said. You can stand on the shore of Zamboanga City and
But-
see these islands. In fact, there are people who take a boat over there
Yeah.
all the time because they're nice beaches. But
But the Muslims are everywhere. And they kidnap people, they kidnap Americans, especially because they know your government will pay. Yes, we have. And I'm sure you remember the Barham case. The Barham case, there are a group of 16 Americans. They were vacationing somewhere. They were vacationing somewhere here in the Cebu, somewhere here. And some of them came over to Palawan over here. Palawan is actually near this Pacific, the South China Sea. China is over here, but they were somewhere here. And you know, all of this is water. So it's easy for you to be kidnapped, placed in a banca, only that motorized banca, and then they bring you over to here. This is Basilan Forest. This is Sulu Forest also. And then no one goes there except Dr. Ani. Me, I go there all the time.
Well, we were there last summer, and there were some Philippine
I'm
Americans.
not kidding. Why? Because I want to help the Muslim people. I have a passion to help them. Because my descendants, I am from the Yakan group. This, you see this is the Yakan group. I come from the Yakan, but Yakans are peaceful. Loving. I'm not a Tausug.